So these are all my suckers. I had my daughter take them out, and all of them that had roots, she put them inside of these containers for me. So you can see that roots hanging out. But my plan was to leave them in here, let them grow some roots, and then we can transplant them outside. I've already told you guys I don't really have success with cutting off suckers and then growing them out because usually I forget to water them. But these have made it to have roots, and we have transplanted them, so that's farther than the last two times I've tried. So fingers crossed, hoping to actually get these rooted and planted outside. That's what we're going to be doing today, is cleaning out the garden so that we can get ready to plant a second wave and fall crops in the garden. I did want to give you guys an update on the garage because a couple days ago was my birthday, and my husband told me that he ended up putting all of the storage bins that I packed up back onto the shelves because it was in the way, and he felt like it could the shelves could hold the storage containers. It was just that the shelving needed to be securely fastened to the shelf, and so he did put all of the storage containers back onto the shelves. So this is what it's looking like in here. We did go ahead, or I did, put my mason jars back in here. I stacked them nice and neatly, and then my husband had already put all of the storage containers in here. I still need to label the front of each storage container of what's in them, but it does look so much better in here. We still have the TV that we need to get rid of, and then these are just our feed containers, which we will be getting a barn, and the barn will have a space for us to keep all of our feed in, and so that will be coming soon, sooner than later, and then the feed won't be in here, but right now this is where we have it. So this area still needs to be cleaned out. We may be able to get to that today, but I am going to just start in the garden and work my way and see what we get done. I do know I have lots of spicy peppers in the garden that need to be picked, and honestly, it's just a little overwhelming. Let me show you guys the outside of the garden. So this is what the garden is looking like at the moment. When we were cleaning out the old barns to fit our new stuff in, we did find all of these bags of perlite, so I put them inside of the garden. I have already shared before that I do have a little bit of obsession. When I start something, I definitely want to be able to finish it, and as you guys know, and as I've said, the garden is never going to be finished. It's never going to come to a place where you're like, it feels so good to be done. And so knowing that, I'm trying to find my way over to the spicy peppers bed, knowing that it can get a little like, oh my goodness, because I come out here after rainstorms and I see all the weeds and thriving, and squash plants that have been eaten by the squash bugs, and all of the things that need to come down off of the trellises, and I'm like, whoo, 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 whoo. But I know that you need to do a little bit at a time, and so that's what the goal is today. This is my spicy pepper bed, and as you can see, there are lots of peppers in here that have turned red. These I think were the pequeño peppers maybe, but they start out this greenish yellow color and then they turn to orange, so I have lots of those ready. I know I have lots of chili peppers in here, so I'm just going to be picking off basically all of the peppers that are in this bed. Maybe if I get my daughters out here, they can start taking down all of these pole beans, and these are definitely dry enough to save the seeds. It did rain last night, so they're a little damp, so we'll have to sit out the beans to dry, but I want to rip out all of the beans off of this trellis. All of this is weeds that I want to get done or pulled. Literally, this sweet potato flower that looks just like a marigold is so pretty. I never saw anyone sweet potatoes flower. The pinto beans that we planted in here they have sprouted and they're still green. So this does tell me that the soil in here is ready. So that's nice. And this was just store-bought pinto beans. I have tomatoes that are looking good. My watermelon and a few cucumbers. I want to get those out transplanted today. So I have got my husband outside with me and we are actually going to start. Are you ready to help me?
Yep.
So I guess, like I said, we're going to start on the pepper bed and start picking all of those peppers. Ooh. First I'm going to try and pull this weed out the corner. Oh my goodness, it's extra thick. Oh, well, it's not going to all come out, but yeah, I'm not going to get the roots on that, but that's not the point. So I know that I've talked to you guys in the past about analysis paralysis, and it's legit a real thing. When I come out here in the garden and I see all the things that need to be done and all the weeds and all the things I want to get done that doesn't necessarily need to be done right now. Like I want to start planting my fruit trees over in my orchard, but it needs to be fenced in, and just dealing with sickness, and then it spreads through the whole family. It literally gives me anxiety sometimes when I think about all of the things that need to be done and what should I do first, even though I know in the back of my head that, you know, if I just start somewhere and just do a little bit at a time, that it'll be right, and keep moving on and chop away a little bit at a time. Sometimes I have to keep saying that to myself to convince myself, because it can be so hard when I'm looking out here and I just want everything to be done all at once. I want to look out here at the end of the day and be like, man, everything that I wanted done is done. And I know that's not realistic, but that's what my brain tells me sometimes. It's like, why is this all not done? Why, do you pick weeds and the weeds are back the next day after a rainstorm? And so I keep doing these videos because, and I want to explain and be honest with you guys when I see comments that are saying like, how do you do it all and everything? And I'm like, am I not saying this enough? Like, I cannot do it all. No one can do it all. Even the people that you see, and they have so much, great before and afters and stuff like that. It's like, if you see someone focusing on one particular area, there's probably other areas that are not, up to their standards, or that they're having to choose. And I would say that it's the same thing for me when I'm focusing on one particular thing. It's not that everything is all together. It's not that, what was that? Oh, this grass has gone to seed, and when I hit it, dust came up. But anyway, like I was saying, it's not that, I'm just the greatest homeschool mom ever that ever did live, or, that I have it all together and all parts of my house and life are awesome, because it's not. I homeschool very laid back manner. My son will be going to 10th grade next year, and I cannot help him with his math and English. My husband, if he has questions, my husband can. And so that's something that I cannot do, but we work together. And if my son has a question, he'll definitely have to wait and ask my husband, because I cannot help him with that. But we do have use Saxon Math, which explains to you how to do it. And so he's been basically all right with, learning himself and reading the instructions to get the answers to the problems. But I mean, if he needed help with something, definitely would have to wait for my husband to get home and ask him. And with my daughter, you know, my oldest daughter, Anaya, she is going to 5th grade, and she helps her younger sister, Nehemiah, a lot because obviously she's older, so she already did those grades. So even though Nehemiah can read, if she has a question, she asks Anaya first. And then if it's a question that Anaya cannot answer, then Anaya comes and asks me, and then we figure it out together. So I just want to be able to encourage you guys that my life is not all great and dandy. There are definitely things that I wish I had set up and in place. Like, I still have not labeled down or settled down what we're going to be doing for homeschooling this upcoming year. And I do want to start soon. But there's just certain things that I need in order before I can start thinking about a new homeschooling year. While I'm over here picking all of these peppers, all together inside this container, it looks so good. My husband has been over here, so he picked the melons off of this trellis. So this trellis is nice and clear now. This is everything he picked. There was a big tomatillo plant over here, which, if you didn't know, tomatillos need 2 plants in order to pollinate and grow, and so we only had 1, so I had him pull that one out. We will be pulling out this dead tomato plant. I put some grapes in every other bed. So there's a grapevine in the first bed, not in this one, here, not here, one right here, not here, and in the first one, because I do want to plant the grapevines in the middle of every other bed. So we have a grapevine here. I want to plant them in the middle of every other bed so that they can sprawl out and be able to grow along the fence that way and that way. And I still have 4 other grape plants. I do want to put some grapes in here and then some grapes over in the orchard area. I do want to have 1 or 2 grapevines growing up a trellis, a cattle panel trellis at the opening of the orchard. And so I know I'm saving 2 to grow up the cattle panel, and then I'm not exactly sure what I'll do with the last 2, but definitely know I want to save some for over there. I was out here the other day thinking about putting some fruit trees over here, because this whole garden is basically has way more than 6 hours of sunlight in the summer. I think it probably has, if there's like 12 to 14 hours of daylight of sun, then we probably have 11, 12, like we probably only, because the trees are right here, and so that's where the sun rises, and then it goes straight across the garden, so it is fully in the sun all day and then sets on the back end. So the front half of my garden is shaded first thing in the morning, but then after it comes above these tree lines, then it is in full sun the whole time until behind these trees, which is late in the day, probably 5:30, actually no, probably more like 6:30, and it goes behind those trees, and then the back half of my garden is shaded. And so I do know that's one of the things, is getting the spots cleared so that I can plant these grapevines and get them in the ground to start growing. This is the outside of the garden, and we do have all of these baby trees that are trying to come up, and so I definitely want to see if my son can get all of these out. I was just talking to my husband because I have all of those rose bushes that I originally was going to plant at the front end of my, what is this called? I guess you would consider that the back, since they were in the front, the back end of our gate going towards the street. And you guys already know that I have 2 roses planted at the entrance. And as you can see, they're lush and green and doing very well on both sides. They have gotten really big, but then I have some that are turning yellow that I haven't planted in the ground yet because of the analysis paralysis and not being completely sure about planting them along the fence. And then also it had lots of weeds up there, and so I had wanted to clear that out. But then thinking about it and not knowing how I would be able to keep the weeds from overtaking the rose bushes up there, because that trench is filled with bulbs. So I wasn't 1,000% sure sold on planting my roses up there. So I decided that I will not plant the roses up there or back there, and I would plant the roses up front at the entrance of my garden. So we have this gate right here, or this fence right here. So I was thinking about planting 2 roses here, and then we have this. So I was thinking about planting 3 here, and then the rest going along this fence right here. So that would be a spot for all of the roses. And I do have 10 roses left, and so that would be a spot for all 10 roses. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to get done. And so my husband is going to get the post hole digger. He asked me to set out where I want each rose plant, and then he would dig the holes for me, and I would be able to plant the roses, which would be amazing, and I would be so happy about that. He's coming right now, so let me get started. So I have all the roses set out in front of where I want them to go, and my husband has started post hole digging because there are probably lots of tree roots and just big stumps that we want to avoid, so he's going to try to use the post hole digger. We have 5 different types of roses, which was 10 roses, and so I just put them one after another. So this whole gate going across will be filled with beautiful roses, and I think I'm happy with that situation. We do have some pools that need to be pulled out in order to plant them, and some stuff over here that need to be pulled away in order for them to be planted. My daughters have finished eating breakfast and have come out, and what they are working on is pulling down the dead bean plants, and the beans that are good they're putting in this container here, and then the beans that are dead that we'll save for seeds, they're putting them in here. So at the end of this, these trellises will be done. My family's still outside working, but I came inside to start breakfast. My daughters did eat some cereal, but I'm going to be actually making some grits, eggs, and bacon, so I came inside to start that. I am going to be using the bacon from ButcherBox. If you guys know, I have done videos before. We get all of our meat from ButcherBox. There will be a coupon code in the description box where you get $30 off of your first box if you would like to try ButcherBox. All of their meat is grass-fed and grass-finished. As I add in this cup of grits to this pot of boiling water, I have 4 cups of water here. I already added the salt. These grits are locally grown by the Amish, and I get it from my local farm store. And so they're stone ground grits. We do get eggs from our chickens. Not all of them are laying, but most of them are, and I do crack them in a separate container because we do have roosters. It is hot outside, so sometimes the eggs may not be good, and so I do want to crack them into something else first, just to make sure I'm not getting a bloody egg or something. I do have a container that I'm putting in the eggshells with the coffee grounds where I made coffee earlier. I think I'm going to do 12 eggs. My son alone can eat about 7 to 8 eggs, but when we make scrambled eggs, I usually do about 12. But he can definitely eat about 7 by himself. While I'm waiting on the pan to heat up, I decided that I was going to go ahead and start dinner. And so I have these chicken drumsticks from ButcherBox. We do have our chickens that we butchered here on the property, but I had got this chicken before we actually butchered our own chickens. So from now on, I would only need to order beef and pork from ButcherBox because we can butcher our own chickens here on the homestead. And so we'll really just need the beef because we are not raising cows at the moment, although I have considered it, and we don't have pigs either. Okay, breakfast is done. We have our bacon, we have our grits. I added some butter and cheese in there, and then we have our eggs. So I'm gonna call everybody in to eat.
1 hour later.
Everyone has finished eating, and I'm heading back outside now. I do want to show you what my family got done while I was inside making breakfast. So my husband did get all of the holes dug for each rose bush, which is really nice. I do have some compost that I'm going to use. I have this black cow that I'm going to be using to fill the holes before I add in the rose bushes. I also have some amendments. And my girls got 2 buckets completely full, one with beans that we'll save and then one with beans that we'll use. And my son was out there helping them because they couldn't reach the actual top of the trellises, but they got most of the beans done on this side or on this trellis that they could reach, and then they're working on that side. They were using that stool to step up and try to reach some. I am going to be using leaving the bean roots inside the ground because bean has nodules at the end that produce nitrogen in the soil if you leave the bean roots in the soil. So I am going to be leaving the bean roots in the soil. My son also got all of the trees that were trying to sprout up really high over in this area. He got them pulled out. So we just need to work on the ones that are spreading into the garden area. I am so happy with the progress that's been made in the garden today. It is getting to the hottest part of the day. It's probably getting towards noon right now, and so we are going to be going inside. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me this morning while we got some gardening work done, and I will see you guys later. Bye.